For thousands of years, men have been trying to crack the code of female desire. What do women actually want? The question has tormented philosophers, driven poets to madness, and left countless men bewildered by the seemingly irrational and ever-changing nature of feminine preference. But what if I told you the answer has been hiding in plain sight? What if the mystery that has puzzled humanity for millennia can be solved with a single, devastatingly simple insight? Today, we're going to decode the algorithm that governs female desire, an algorithm so powerful it shapes every decision a woman makes, from what she wears to whom she marries to how she lives her life. Once you understand this pattern, every seemingly contradictory female behaviour will suddenly make perfect sense. This isn't about judgment or criticism. This is about understanding one of the most fundamental forces in human psychology, a force that explains why women simultaneously claim to want independence while desperately seeking approval, why they say they want authenticity while following every trending lifestyle, and why they insist on being unique while looking exactly like everyone else. The truth about what women want will change how you see every interaction, every relationship, and every social dynamic you've ever witnessed. The secret to understanding female desire lies in recognizing a fundamental truth that most people are too uncomfortable to acknowledge. Women are herd animals in ways that men simply are not. This isn't an insult. It's evolutionary psychology. While men were selected for risk-taking, innovation, and individual achievement, women were selected for social cohesion, group harmony, and collective survival. For millions of years, a woman's survival depended on maintaining her position within the group. Being cast out meant death. This created what I call the social safety algorithm SEMD, an unconscious program that constantly scans the environment asking, what are other women doing? Where is the group moving? How do I stay safely within the herd while gaining maximum advantage? The answer to what do women want is elegant in its simplicity. Women want what other women want, but more specifically, they want what the women they perceive as successful, attractive, and high status want. This isn't conscious imitation, it's deeper than that. It's a biological imperative that operates below the level of awareness, driving decisions that women themselves often can't explain. Watch a group of women at dinner. Within minutes, they'll unconsciously mirror each other's posture, speech patterns, and energy levels. If one orders a salad, others suddenly become health conscious. If one mentions a new Netflix series, it goes on everyone's watch list. If one starts talking about travel plans, suddenly everyone needs a vacation. This isn't coincidence. It's the hive mind in action. Now, you might think this makes women mindless followers, but that's missing the deeper intelligence at work. The female brain has evolved to be exquisitely sensitive to social cues, because reading the group correctly was literally a matter of life and death. Consider the distribution of traits across genders. In almost every measurable characteristic, intelligence, risk tolerance, creativity, aggression, men show wider variation. You get more male geniuses and more male idiots, more male billionaires and more male homeless, more male innovators and more male criminals. Women cluster toward the center, not because they're incapable of extremes, but because evolution punished female extremes more harshly than male ones. A weird, antisocial man might still reproduce if he invents something valuable or accumulates resources. A weird, antisocial woman historically faced social exile and genetic extinction. This clustering creates what researchers call female conformity bias, the unconscious drive to identify and align with the dominant trends in female behavior. It's not weakness, it's survival strategy refined over millions of years. But here's where it gets interesting. The algorithm doesn't just track what other women are doing, it specifically tracks what appears to be working for them. Women aren't following random female behavior, they're following successful female behavior. The woman who seems happy gets copied. The woman who attracts male attention gets studied. The woman who appears fulfilled becomes a template. The woman who looks like she's winning at life becomes the model that others unconsciously adopt. This explains why certain types of women become cultural influencers while others remain invisible. It's not just about beauty or talent, it's about projecting the image of a woman who has successfully navigated the social landscape and achieved desirable outcomes. Think about the women who shape female culture in any given era. Marilyn Monroe didn't just represent beauty, she represented a woman who used her femininity to gain power and status. Madonna didn't just make music, She showed women how to be sexual and successful simultaneously. Today's influencers don't just sell products. They sell the appearance of having achieved the perfect balance of all desirable female experiences. The algorithm processes these examples and delivers instructions. This is what success looks like. This is how to win as a woman. This is the template to follow. This is why female trends spread with viral intensity. When one woman in a social circle gets engaged, suddenly marriage is on everyone's mind. When one starts posting fitness content, everyone becomes health conscious. When one launches a business, entrepreneurship becomes the goal. It's not that these women are consciously copying each other, it's that their brains are programmed to identify and replicate patterns that appear to lead to female success and satisfaction. This explains the seemingly contradictory nature of female desire. Women don't want the same thing consistently over time because they're constantly updating their algorithm based on new information about what's working for other women. The woman who desperately wanted a career at 22 suddenly wants a baby at 28 because she's observing other women who appear happy with motherhood. The woman who prioritized independence in her early 30s suddenly craves partnership because she's seeing other women flourish in relationships. The woman who was content with a simple life suddenly wants luxury because she's surrounded by women who seem fulfilled by material success. Men often interpret this as fickleness or inability to commit, but it's actually evidence of a highly sophisticated social intelligence system that's constantly processing new data and updating its conclusions about optimal female strategy. This adaptive capacity served women well throughout history. When social conditions changed, women who could quickly identify and adopt new successful patterns had better survival and reproductive outcomes than those who rigidly stuck to outdated strategies. 20 years ago, the successful woman template was different. Marriage and motherhood dominated the female success algorithm. Women wanted to be wives and mothers because that's what successful women did. The social proof was overwhelming. Happy marriages were everywhere, children were celebrated, domesticity was rewarded. Women weren't just following cultural expectations, they were following what appeared to be working for other women. The women who got married young seemed secure and fulfilled. The women who had children seemed purposeful and loved. The algorithm processed this information and concluded, this is the path to female success. But the algorithm is only as good as the data it receives, and for most of human history, women had access to a relatively small sample size of female experience. They could observe their mothers, sisters, neighbours, and perhaps women in their broader community. The dataset was limited but consistent. But social media changed everything. Suddenly, women had access to a global database of female experience. Instead of comparing themselves to the women in their immediate social circle, they could observe millions of women living millions of different lives. And what do they see when they scroll through Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn? They see women who appear to be doing it all. The successful 25-year-old entrepreneur posting from Bali, the mother of 3 who's also a best-selling author, the fitness influencer who's also getting her PhD, the travel blogger who's also building a tech startup, the life coach who's also a model who's also a podcast host. But here's the critical insight. Social media doesn't just expand the data set, it fundamentally corrupts it. The algorithm is now being fed carefully curated highlight reels instead of complete life pictures. It's processing marketing materials instead of authentic experiences. Every woman's social media presence is essentially an advertisement for her version of female success. The struggling entrepreneur only posts about her wins. The exhausted mother only shares the magical moments. The anxious influencer only shows her confident poses. The female social safety algorithm wasn't designed to process this type of manipulated data. It evolved to read authentic social cues from real-life interactions. When it encounters carefully crafted digital personas, it treats them as genuine evidence of what's possible and desirable for women. The algorithm processes this information and delivers a devastating conclusion. Successful women don't choose between different life paths. They pursue all of them simultaneously. This creates what I call infinite FOMO, the fear that choosing any one path means missing out on all the others. The modern woman's brain receives constant signals that other women are somehow managing to be mothers and CEOs, wives and world travellers, spiritual gurus and party queens, all at the same time. The data seems to suggest that limitation is a choice, that trade-offs are unnecessary, that having it all is not only possible but expected. The algorithm concludes that any woman who isn't simultaneously crushing it in multiple domains is simply not trying hard enough or thinking big enough. Before we dive deeper into how this algorithm shapes modern female behaviour, if this analysis is helping you understand the psychological forces that drive human social dynamics, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Understanding these patterns gives you insight into not just female psychology, but the social programming that affects all of us. The result is a generation of women who want everything, not because they're greedy or unrealistic, but because their social safety algorithm is telling them that everything is what successful women have. They want the career and the family, the adventure and the stability, the independence and the partnership, the individual achievement and the social belonging, the artistic expression and the financial security, the spiritual growth and the material success. This isn't random desire. It's the inevitable output of an algorithm that's been fed data suggesting that other women are successfully obtaining all of these things. But wanting everything creates a paralysis that previous generations of women never experienced. When your grandmother wanted to be a good wife and mother, the path was clear. The expectations were defined. The success metrics were understood. The modern woman faces an impossible optimization problem. How do you maximize career success and maternal fulfillment and romantic satisfaction and personal growth and social impact and financial independence and spiritual development and physical health and aesthetic beauty and intellectual advancement all simultaneously? The algorithm keeps processing inputs that suggest other women have solved this equation, so it continues to output the directive. You should be able to do this too. Figure it out. This is why modern women are more anxious, depressed, and generally dissatisfied than women in previous generations, despite having more opportunities and freedom than ever before. They're trying to optimize for variables that are often mutually exclusive based on data that isn't representative of reality. The tragedy is that social media only shows highlight reels, not complete pictures. The entrepreneur posting from Bali doesn't show her relationship failures. The mother author doesn't post about her anxiety medication. The fitness influencer doesn't document her financial struggles. But the algorithm doesn't know how to filter for authenticity. It just processes the data it receives and concludes, this is what successful women do, therefore this is what I should want. The woman scrolling through her feed sees a constant stream of other women appearing to achieve the impossible, and her brain interprets this as evidence that the impossible is actually just the new standard. Anything less becomes settling. Any limitation becomes personal failure. This creates the modern female dilemma. Paralysis in the face of infinite possibility. When you want everything, choosing anything feels like failure. When you believe other women are having it all, having some feels like settling. So women delay major decisions. They keep their options open. They resist commitment because commitment means foreclosure of other possibilities. They stay in the exploration phase longer because they've been convinced that other women somehow manage to explore everything before settling down. The woman in her late 20s who won't commit to a relationship because she hasn't travelled enough yet. The successful professional who won't have children because she hasn't built her business empire yet. The married woman who's miserable because she feels she missed out on the experiences single women are having. This pattern of delayed decision-making has real consequences. Women are waiting longer to marry, having children later, changing careers more frequently, and generally approaching life with the optimization mindset that treats every choice as potentially wrong if a better option might exist. The irony is that this approach, designed to maximize life satisfaction, often minimizes it. The woman who keeps all her options open often ends up choosing none of them at the optimal time. The woman who refuses to settle for good often ends up settling for much less when her options become limited by age, circumstances, or missed opportunities. But the algorithm doesn't account for time constraints or biological realities. It processes current social proof and outputs current desires without calculating future implications. It sees the 40-year-old influencer starting a family and concludes that timing doesn't matter, ignoring the struggles she may have faced or the resources she had access to that made later parenthood possible. This pattern explains what men often perceive as female fickleness or impossibility to please. It's not that women don't know what they want, it's that what they want keeps changing based on what they observe other women wanting and getting. The algorithm is constantly updating. Last year, minimalism was trending, so women wanted simple lives. This year, Soft life aesthetics are popular, so women want luxury and ease. Next year it might be adventure and independence again. Men watch this and feel confused because male desire tends to be more consistent over time. A man who wants to build a business generally keeps wanting to build businesses. A man who wants a family continues wanting a family. Male goals tend to be internally driven and relatively stable, but female desire is externally calibrated. It shifts with the social proof. It updates with new information about what's working for other women. It evolves as the definition of female success evolves. This isn't a character flaw, it's a feature. This flexibility allowed women to adapt to changing social conditions throughout history. When societies valued motherhood, women wanted to be mothers. When societies reward career achievement, women want careers. When societies celebrate individual expression, women want to express themselves individually. The problem arises when society sends mixed messages about what women should want, which is exactly what's happening now. The current cultural moment simultaneously celebrates the working mother and the stay-at-home mom, the independent woman and the devoted wife, the entrepreneur and the artist. Every possible version of female existence is being marketed as the path to fulfillment. The algorithm receives contradictory data and outputs contradictory desires. Women want to be independent, but they also want to be taken care of. They want careers, but they also want to be present for their children. They want adventure, but they also want security. This internal contradiction creates the anxiety, depression, and general unhappiness that characterizes so many modern women. They're trying to pursue mutually exclusive goals because their algorithm is telling them that other women have somehow managed to achieve the impossible. The solution isn't to judge women for this pattern, but to understand it. If you're a man trying to understand the women in your life, recognize that her desires aren't arbitrary. They're outputs of a sophisticated social processing system that's constantly updating based on new information. If you're a woman reading this, understand that your changing desires aren't evidence of flightiness or confusion. They're the natural result of a brain that's designed to track and adapt to social patterns. But awareness creates choice. Once you understand the algorithm, you can decide whether to follow it blindly or think more critically about what you actually want, versus what you think you should want based on what other women appear to have. The women who find genuine satisfaction are often those who learn to filter the social inputs more carefully. They stop comparing themselves to highlight reels and start looking at complete pictures. They stop trying to have everything and start choosing what matters most to them personally. They develop what I call algorithm awareness, the ability to recognize when their desires are being shaped by social proof rather than authentic preference. They learn to ask, do I want this because it would genuinely fulfill me, or because it looks like it's working for other women? This doesn't mean ignoring social information entirely. The feminine intuition for reading social patterns is valuable and shouldn't be discarded, but it means learning to process that information more consciously rather than letting it unconsciously drive every decision. The happiest women I know are those who found a way to honor their social nature while maintaining individual agency. They stay connected to what other women are doing and thinking, but they don't let that information override their own judgment about what's right for their specific life circumstances. They understand that the appearance of success isn't the same as actual satisfaction. They recognize that other women's highlight reels aren't complete life stories. They accept that choosing one path necessarily means not choosing others, and they make peace with that reality. Most importantly, they understand that the question, "What do women want?" is actually the wrong question. The right question is, what do I want given who I am and what actually matters to me? But answering that question requires stepping outside the hive mind long enough to think independently. It requires developing the confidence to want something different from what other women want. It requires accepting that authentic satisfaction might look different from social media success. This is challenging because it goes against millions of years of evolutionary programming. The brain that kept women alive by following the group doesn't easily accept the logic of individual choice. The safety algorithm protests when you diverge from what appears to be working for other women. But this is where true empowerment lies, not in rejecting feminine nature, but in understanding it well enough to choose when to follow it and when to transcend it. The women who master this balance become leaders rather than followers. They set trends rather than chasing them. They create their own definition of success rather than adopting someone else's. They influence the algorithm rather than being controlled by it. These women understand that the hive mind is a tool, not a master, They use their sensitivity to social patterns to gather information, but they process that information through their own values and priorities before making decisions. They recognize that wanting what other women want isn't wrong, but it's not automatically right either. Sometimes the group is moving in a direction that serves you, sometimes it's not. Wisdom lies in developing the discernment to know the difference. The most fulfilled women are those who found their own path while maintaining connection to the feminine community. They didn't reject their social nature, they evolved it. They transformed unconscious following into conscious choosing. This is the real answer to what do women want. Women want to belong and to matter. They want to be part of something larger than themselves while still maintaining their individual identity. They want the security of the group and the fulfillment of personal achievement. When these needs are balanced, women flourish. When they're in conflict, when the group demands one thing and individual fulfillment requires another, women suffer. Understanding this dynamic doesn't solve the problem, but it creates the foundation for better solutions. Men who understand the social nature of female desire can better support the women in their lives. Women who understand their own algorithm can make more conscious choices about when to follow it and when to override it. Most importantly, we can all develop more compassion for the complexity of human social psychology. The forces that drive our desires are ancient, powerful, and largely unconscious. Recognizing their influence is the first step toward conscious choice. The feminine hive mind isn't a weakness to overcome, it's a strength to understand and direct wisely. When women learn to use their social intelligence consciously, rather than being used by it unconsciously, they become unstoppable. That's when they stop asking, "What do women want?" and start declaring, "This is what I want." And that declaration, backed by the full power of conscious feminine intelligence, can change everything. If this perspective on female psychology resonates with your own observations, share it with someone who could benefit from understanding these dynamics. Consciousness about our unconscious patterns is the foundation of all meaningful change. The algorithm that drives female desire is powerful, but it's not destiny. Understanding it gives you the power to work with it consciously, rather than being controlled by it unconsciously. And that makes all the difference.